Hi, hello, my name is Lottie, aka Sneezy Ferret, and we've got to talk about Andy. Not because I want to talk about Andrew, because I'll be honest, every time I do talk about him, I end up with a sick feeling in my stomach, but because I feel like I have to. Now, just like I'm sure you have been, over the past few days I've been bombarded with different news articles, all of them telling me how happy and excited I should be that Andrew has now lost his titles. But upon looking, I couldn't find a single part of me that actually gave a damn about that. Mainly because it's not really a punishment, is it? He's still going to be treated like a prince, let's face it. No one's going to be suddenly treating him like the commoner the newspapers are stating that he will be. No commoner I know is currently looking through a catalogue of luxury properties on King Charles's own private estate in Norfolk, for example. No commoner I know is currently going to receive a six-figure payout or an annual stipend from King Charles for the rest of our lives. Again, doesn't sound so much like a punishment as it does a prize. Most of us would be excited to hear that. So let's actually read an article. Yes, it's a very poorly written article by the Daily Mail. In fact, one of the worst I've seen. But it does a lot of my work for me because it has different comments from different news articles. So I'm going to be lazy today. I don't care. So let's get into it. So the article's headline is Andrew in line for six-figure sum and annual stipend from the king as the disgraced ex-prince relocates himself and his teddy bears from the Royal Lodge. All right, I made that bit up, but still. So a couple of points before we get into this. Anyone else feeling like this is a little too late? Because that's how I feel about it. Unfortunately, and bless her, the Queen had a massive blind spot when it came to Andrew and allowed him to get away with so much stuff. And I'm certain she wouldn't have allowed Charles to get away with the same amount. She wouldn't have. Mainly because he had to have a much better public persona to be king. But she even helped him, Andrew, pay off one of the victims in all of this. The other thing which is irritating the hell out of me this morning is different newspapers all going on about these breaking new articles in regards to Andrew. One of them being about him and 40 hookers in a hotel over 4 days. And I didn't read it and go, ooh, isn't that nice? I read it and went, I'm sorry, but why are you only now just telling us? Why didn't you tell us about it before? Now, truth is, we know why they didn't, and that's probably because they had a deal with the palace not to put out such embarrassing stories, otherwise they would lose their contacts at the palace. But in regards to all this, I do think there's possibly some animosity from Charles towards his younger brother at how much he got away with. And that's why this is happening. I'm very reluctant to believe that he's doing this now because he sees how disgruntled the public are, because otherwise this would have been done a few years ago. Anyway, let's get into it. I've ranted it long enough. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is set to receive a six-figure payout and an annual stipend to stop him overspending as he begins a new life as a commoner. I really hate that word, I really do. In a bid to reach a once-and-for-all solution, a relocation settlement option is on the table for the disgraced ex-duke, and it includes a payout for his Sandringham move. You may notice I'm inserting words. The reason is to make it make sense. It is understood that King Charles III would then pay the shunned prince an annual allowance worth several times his $20,000 a year Navy pension from his private funds, The Guardian reported. It comes as Andrew was stripped of all his titles yesterday as Buckingham Palace announced in a clinically cold statement that he would no longer be known as the Prince and is to leave the Royal Lodge on the grounds of Windsor Castle. It was previously revealed that he had been paying peppercorn rent on the Grade 2 listed property where he was living with his ex-wife and former Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, for over 2 decades. I must admit there is a story this morning I don't understand, and that is apparently their 2 daughters are more angry with her than they are at their father, which doesn't make any sense to me because unless there is a lot to still be released about Ferguson, although she was still having contact with Epstein, it was their father that was doing the horrible stuff. But anyway, it is understood that Andrew has been served notice to surrender the lease at the 30-bedroom mansion and will move out of the residence as soon as practically possible to a property on His Majesty's private estate in Norfolk, hence what I meant by, he's just looking at new luxury properties. While the particulars on where specifically Andrew will be living are unknown, palace sources revealed in a brutal remark that Fergie will make her own arrangements when it comes to her future. Former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond believes the former Duke of York will likely live the life of a hermit after moving from Windsor to His Majesty's private Sandringham estate. Yeah, I doubt very much he'll be living as a hermit. I'm sure he'll lose some of his friends because some of them weren't true friends and just liked him because of the different contacts that he had. But like attracts like, and I'm sure there's probably a few idiots who want to be bestie with him. Probably. So the statement from the Buckingham Palace, now if you haven't read it, I'll just read it out quickly. It says, His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to remove the style, titles and honours of Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, or Randy Andy. His lease on Royal Lodge has to date provided him with the legal protection to continue in residence. Formal notice has now been served to surrender the lease and he will move to alternative private accommodation. These censures are deemed necessary, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. Their Majesties wish to make clear that their thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. So, it was pretty cold, but yeah, I get behind that. It says, I think he will lead a pretty isolated life, she said, isolated life. Although he will be able to roam freely around the 20,000-acre estate in Norfolk, Miss Bond said Andrew will be holed up before calling his position in line to the throne is untenable for the royal family. I hate this article. A decision on the Royal Lodge was made on Thursday amid growing controversy surrounding Andrew's relationship with pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein, with whom Andrew lied about cutting ties with. It comes after the Mail on Sunday revealed Andrew told Epstein in an email, "We are in this together," a day after the infamous picture of the former prince with his alleged then-teenage sex victim, Virginia Giuffre, was published. And new emails from unsealed court documents from a legal battle between the US Virgin Islands and JP Morgan show that the former prince told Epstein it would be good to catch up in person months after the child sex offender was released. Like I said, he'll keep some good company. I'm sure he will. Andrew has continued to deny the allegations made against him, as well as ever meeting Miss Giuffre, who made damning revelations about Mr. Mountbatten Windsor in a posthumous memoir. She took her own life earlier this year, aged 41. I'm not going to comment on that. In 2022, Andrew settled a US civil case she lodged for a reported £12 million, reportedly receiving money from his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, to help meet the costs. The settlement came with no admission of liability. That's what I meant by his mother having a massive blind spot when it came to him. She really did. In the wake of the fallout, Miss Giuffre's family said she was an ordinary American girl from an ordinary American family who had brought down a British prince with her truth and extraordinary courage. They do have to be braver than they should be. It comes as the Trade Minister, Sir Chris Bryant, described now as an ordinary member of the public, while suggesting he should go to the US to answer questions about Epstein's crimes. I can't keep reading this article, it's driving me mad. But anyway, I think we've covered everything important. I just, in closing this, I can't find myself to be happy about it, for obvious reasons. You know, all the ones I've outlined. How? Why? He's still going to live a better life than the majority of people in the UK. He's still going to live a much more privileged life. In fact, I'd probably be happier if this had happened years ago, when they had said outright, "We know you're lying," because they would have had access to a lot more files than we did as the public, and said, "Get out." But they didn't. They've helped try to cover this up, because it's not good optics. And just because they've decided now that the public have reached boiling point with other things, that now might be the time to do something about it, it doesn't make me feel better. And I'm sure it probably doesn't make any of the victims feel better either. He's still going to have a better life than they are. So, I'll leave the article here. I'll leave the video here. Yes, that makes more sense. I've been making so many videos over the past kind of couple of hours that I'm just really, really tired. I've been working on one which will be a breakdown of who Keir Starmer actually is. Not his careers, but his actual personality. And that meant having to listen to a lot of interviews, read a lot of articles, and I'm so tired now. So yeah, I'm going to leave the video here. I love you all very much. Please take care. Very little in this country makes you less angry. The news is fun, isn't it? So yes, take care. I love you all. Bye-bye.